What do you think overall of the recruiting class that's coming in this year?
I think a lot of people are going to be down saying that you're taking a lot of flyers on three-star guys, things like that. But when you look at how much roster Brad Underwood actually had to fill, I think he did a fantastic job of getting people that can play in his system, which is a positionless, very athletic system that you can't have a lot of traditional players in. So it really fits the new scheme of player, and he got some guys that really fit that mold.
So, with this positionless style of play that Underwood wants to run, essentially, how is this going to work in the Big Ten? Because you got or schools like Michigan or Michigan State that run a traditional big man, your traditional 1 through 5, basically. So, how do you think that this positionless system is going to fit into the Big Ten? Are we going to be able to win games, or are we going to be able to see an NCAA tournament in the future with this positionless system? What do you think?
I think there's a couple levels to it. First off is that we're going to have players that can still fit that traditional basketball. You'll see guys like we'll talk about De La Rosa, who's a big body banger, just like, traditional guys we've seen in the league, is Shaq, things like that. So he'll be able to play those guys if we need him to. We got, Georgie Bashanchevili, who can play traditional power forward, but in this positional system, we're going to see him play a little bit more 5. In reality, though, basketball is all kind of pushed in this way. We saw Villanova win national championships this way, where they're playing this positionless, 4 guard, 1 forward type scheme, which is turning into college basketball in a whole. So I don't think that you're going to see them have trouble competing against other teams. Another thing about Underwood's system that makes it kind of unique is their little high press, full court, up-tempo defense, which really pushes the issue of not even letting teams get the ball down low to a big guy like that, big old 7-footer who can jam it. They're going to make the guards make decisions and issues well before they get to that side of the court, and that's going to help keep it out of those hands as well. So I think there's a lot of promise. It can play with just about anybody. We've seen it work too. The longer these guys get in the system and get stronger and get faster, it's just going to look better.
Well, and we saw a lot of that last year, a lot of high energy defense and whatnot. That was one thing they weren't really lacking on, was energy. They were all over the court all the time. Now, whether or not they won those games, it didn't happen as often as we'd have liked, but it worked out really well. So I'm excited, like you said, we'll have those guys, another year of experience, couple years for some of the guys, getting into that Big Ten play. And I don't think it's actually going to turn out too bad for us, even though it's not a conventional Big Ten style. Just based on the rankings this year for the recruiting classes, depending on which website you look at, who you talk to, the Illini have the 4th or 5th best recruiting class this year in the Big Ten. Overall, that puts them anywhere from 23 to 18, once again, depending on where you look at, for recruiting class out of all the NCAA Division I schools. So, like you were talking about earlier, he did a great job filling holes. They had so many guys leave, and he filled it with 3-star guys, 4-star guys. It doesn't really matter, but he filled it with decent guys that fit his scheme. And like you were saying, Jake, I think it's going to work out well for them, especially once they get a little bit of playing time under their belt.
One question that I want to ask you, Jake, is we know the Big Ten is really a top 2 or 3 conference in the entire nation. And with that said, the Big Ten usually has their traditional ACC tournament every year. And when that's going on, the competition, I wouldn't say, is as high as it is when we do interconference play. I think that we'll do pretty well against the ACC. But when it comes to Big Ten conference play, how do you expect this team this upcoming year to perform in those games?
Well, the way I look at it, and you guys touched on having ACC being a little bit of our out-of-conference opponent. What I'm looking more is the Maui tournament. I don't know if you guys saw that. There's going to be a lot of great competition there that will battle test these young guys and learn how to play. And then once we hit Big Ten play, I'm looking to expect, grad transfer Adonis De La Rosa to come in and really give that body presence that we need, while these young guys having actually developed and learned how to play against top flight opponent in that Maui tournament and the ACC challenge, things like that. Because while it's great to beat Longwood State or whoever early in the year, we saw Mark Smith go off against these out-of-conference, lower-level teams, even Division II teams. My McKendree Bearcats played Illinois 2 years ago. So, like, that's all fine and dandy, but when you actually play a high-quality opponent, that's the only way to get better.
Absolutely. Now, having that said, when it comes down to it, and every team makes the Big Ten tournament, are we going to see a first-round exit this time around, or do you think that we might be able to win one, maybe 2 games this year?
And that'll probably be more about what the scope of the team looks like there, how comfortable they are. But you got to think that a team that can press like that can stay alive in most games. That's something that, as long as you got guys that can make shots, and I think we got a lot of shot makers on this team.
Oh yeah.
If you can press and you can make shots, you can get in a game in a hurry and take a game clear out of contention in a hurry if you play that system. So I think they can hang with anybody and they can get 1 or 2 rounds, but we'll have to see what the health is and what kind of momentum they have going into the tournament. Because that's always a big thing with the Big Ten tournament is who has momentum going in. We've seen Michigan be not as great a team. They'll get hot for the Big Ten tournament, then find themselves in the NCAA tournament just from momentum alone.
So going off of shot creation, we all know that Trent Frazier likes to shoot the ball, and he can shoot the ball very, very effectively. We saw it last year, even though Tevion Jones was supposed to be the guy that Illinois relied on. It was completely flipped, and Trent Frazier was the man. What did he drop again? We talked about it. He dropped 34 points against Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. That's saying something.
7 3-pointers.
Yeah, Wisconsin's an amazing team. They always have been, and they probably will be for a long time. But going off of that, Trent Frazier likes to shoot from the outside. You tweeted out also, or retweeted a tweet from Adam Fletcher with his workout schedule or regiment this summer of him getting to the ball and getting the ball up to the rim. So with that being said, Trent Frazier being able to shoot from the outside and get the ball to the rim effectively, which he's been able to do, or he was able to do last year, but being able to do that a little bit better, do you think that will hinder other players on the floor with that mentality that Frazier has, or do you think it'll do nothing but improve and help?
And, well, you see, I think getting more aggressive like that in Frazier is going to help everybody. Anybody that's an Illinois fan, I highly recommend following Adam Fletcher, the strength and conditioning coach, to see the development of our players. He'll usually do a picture before and after just this summer, and you can see how guys develop. And Trent is definitely one of those guys. He's showed a video of him taking a backdoor cut and putting it up above the rim, yamming it. And that's really a sign for Illinois fans to be really excited about, because these athletes are just getting more and more just explosive, which is something we haven't had really in Illinois sports. I'm thinking the last true explosive athlete on the basketball court was Joseph Bertrand, in terms of a guy that could just go up and just slam it. And Kipper's got some of that in him too. But to be able to develop athletes more and more, we're going to see great things. And it's also promising when you think about a guy like Samba Kane, who needs to get bigger and in a hurry, and Fletcher can do that, so that's a great follow. But anyways, in terms of Frazier being a more dominant ball guy, I think that's something Illinois has really planned for. They've got shooters in this recruiting class. We'll talk about Tevion Jones and Alan Griffin, who can spot up. And then also people are going to say, yeah, Io, who's a ball-dominant guard. But in reality, his last year of high school, he deferred quite a bit to Adam Miller on that Morgan Park team. He's pretty comfortable playing off ball, moving around, getting himself open, and then if he has to create on his own, but he's not reliant on having the ball like some guards.
Real quick, I want to touch on, you said Tevion Jones is a spot-up shooter, and we know that he can do that. But when you look at his highlight tapes, we do see a bit of an athlete in Jones, not at the level of Bertrand, like you said, but maybe a little below that. And I do think that he's very capable of, like you said, throwing the ball down. Is this something that, if once he becomes more comfortable with the college environment, that we could see more of in his game?
Oh, absolutely. I think Tevion Jones has the ability to be a guy you can ISO and just let him go to work. And if he wants to step back, pull up, if he wants to drive and hammer it down, if he wants to pull up from way deep, Steph Curry range, like he can find that in his game. But just all these young guys to be able to just play off of guys who have experience is going to be huge early, and then just developing at their own pace. And people can get frustrated, like we talked about. Mark Smith, we don't want to talk about it, but he didn't develop the way he wanted to. Big Ten play was kind of tough for him, and he forced the issue, and it ended up being not lot of turnovers, a lot of missed shots because he couldn't get comfortable in a groove. So it's important, I think, that we just let all of these freshmen come into their own because they're going to have to play. There's no doubt about it. But can they just find their rhythm early? And we saw that, and, Trent Frazier able to find that. So it's not possible, but just you give him time.
Well, and to kind of piggyback off of that, I think that's exactly right. All these freshmen need to kind of come into their own. So to go on that original thought, Frazier likes to shoot the ball. He's going to shoot it a lot. I don't think that's a bad thing because he's going to shoot. All these young guys know it's Frazier's team. He came out and balled out last year, and he claimed it. It's his. So I think he's going to shoot as much as he wants, and as long as he's hitting them, he's going to keep shooting. And all that's going to do is create open looks for other guys and get everybody else in the game. So I don't have a problem with Frazier taking control of everything, shooting 10 threes a game if he really wants to. So I think Frazier, we don't have a problem there, and I really think it's going to help those young guys like you touched on, help them kind of come into their own, especially guys like Io and Tavion Jones. Help them settle in, get used to the game, maybe not take that punch straight up front because they got this guy with a little bit of experience and a little bit of gumption in him to kind of help him along the way, give him a little kickstart. Excited for Tavion Jones. You said this guy, he's a beast, do it all, inside, outside. So I think Frazier taking the ball as much as he's going to, it helps with that ISO on Jones. Draw some of the crowd away from him so it's not a 4-on-1.
I think that we can all agree that Frazier is probably the most impactful player on this team as of this point in time. But I want to know, Jake, out of all of the recruits that we're bringing in right now, who are you most looking forward to, or who would be your favorite of this class?
I'm glad you asked that because I'm a little bit different than most people. Like you said, people want to be excited about Io and Tavion Jones. But for me, I got two guys I really like. One's Alan Griffin. If you watch this kid play, he has more confidence than he knows what to do with. He's lighting it up from everywhere on the court.
Right.
And the thing I like about him is he's a long athlete. I feel like we haven't had a lot of long athletes, guys that just eat up space with their arms and their wingspan. It can also go up and slam it and just guard and block shots well from a guard position. I don't think we've had that in a while. And he's 6'5", but he's super long. He can scratch his knee standing straight up. I swear. And that's something out of a wing defender, you'd like to have that a lot. So Alan Griffin, if you watch his videos of him playing some of this New York style state tournament, it's kind of different there, so I can't call it like state championship. But he went out and balled out in this tournament, and he had the green light to shoot from anywhere on the court. And that's something that you don't have to teach, and it's something that transfers immediately to Big Ten play, because if you can shoot, you can shoot. There's no doubt about that. And if you get open, you're going to hit shots. I like him a lot for that in terms of defense, as well as being just a spot-up shooter to space the floor. Also, I like our recent signing of Anthony Higgs. This kid is perfect for Brett Underwood's positionless system. I can't even speak enough on how perfect he is. Kid jumps out of the gym. Another thing, like I said, we haven't had that type of athleticism lately, but he jumps out of the gym. 6'8", he can play the Draymond Green small ball 5 type position that Brad Underwood's looking for against smaller teams, and play it well because he has great defensive ability, great instincts, and he can go up and send a shot like a big, a 5 guy, a 7-footer, doesn't matter. He's up there and he's going to send it off the backboard. He's got crazy athleticism, and I was so happy to see him sign because I think he's perfect for this system.
So real quick, a little bit on Higgs, because when we talked about all the Illini recruits a couple of weeks ago on one of our previous episodes, Higgs was not a commit. He was being looked at, but he did not hard commit to the University of Illinois. Higgs was originally committed to Ole Miss, decommitted because their coach left. And then he got some other Power 5 offers, one of those including Louisville, which we know Louisville's having some issues with the NCAA. So how do you feel that impacted his decision to come to the University of Illinois, and he saw what Brad Underwood is doing with this system?
I really like to think that he saw his position in the system and knew he was wanted. At the end of the day, it's hard to say what it is. I'm sure it's really lucrative to go to Louisville. Say he went to Louisville, they've had all sorts of guys, Donovan Mitchell, Terry Rozier, that are playing in the league right now, where he can play and play early. But that's just me.
I definitely think that this is a guy that can come off the bench, and I'm not trying to put any labels on anyone, but when I see this guy, I want to compare him to Roger Powell from way back in the day. Just that overall attitude and being the athlete that he is, and kind of just doing a little bit of everything. Like you said, Draymond Green-esque type of player. Is this something that we can expect of Higgs in the future?
I think that's definitely his role early, is just being that enforcer, coming in off the bench, playing a 4 or a 5 spot. He's listed as a small forward, but in this system, it doesn't really matter. It's more of, are you a guard or are you a wing?
Right, he's 6'8", so he can play. He can play everywhere.
It's kind of like LeBron. You want him to bring the ball up, he'll bring the ball up. You want him to play center, he'll play center. You want him on the wing, hell, he'll go on the wing.
Yeah, that's no problem for him, and I think he'll understand his role, especially when he realizes how valuable it is. It won't matter what he's actually doing, but definitely a lot of athleticism, attitude from in the post spot. I don't think he's gonna back down from anybody, any challenge. We yet to see. This is just from my film. He plays with some swagger, and I don't think he's gonna get discouraged easily. And I really like what I see from this. Like I said, I've texted other Illinois fans, and I was off the wall, over the moon excited when he signed.
So, real quick, we got one more recruit we need to touch on real quick that we didn't get. Adonis De La Rosa coming out of Kent State. He's a big man, 7 foot, 261 pounds, big body, big frame, big presence for the Big Ten. One thing I did notice about him is that he was in foul trouble quite a bit in his time at Kent State. Not only that, he was averaging about 3 turnovers a game. But those turnovers came on the offensive end with them offensive fouls, which is also at the same time kind of a double whammy. So how do you feel about De La Rosa? Do you think he'll be able to kind of calm down on those fouls in the Big Ten, or do you think it's going to be worse? Or what's just your overall prediction of De La Rosa?
Honestly, with De La Rosa, I think a lot of Illinois fans need to kind of temper what he's going to be. It's really nice to see this shiny new big man and think he's going to come in and dominate in the Big Ten, because that's what it's all been all about. But in reality, I just look at De La Rosa as 5 more fouls that we can have, and a guy that also rebounds well, especially from the offensive end. So I'm not looking at him to be the man in the post by any means. I don't think we necessarily need a guy to be the man, but just as somebody that if there is a big body beating up on guys like Samba Kane, Georgie, Kipper, that he can come in and he can set the tone. And if he's got a foul, he's got a foul. But in the end of the day, he's going to rebound. He's going to hit the offensive glass really good, putbacks. And, I mean, like I said, I don't think that he's necessarily vital to the team to be successful, but he is a guy that has 5 more fouls, which was 5 more fouls than we had a month ago when we were missing scholarships left and right. So,
one last question, Jake, before we move on here. The overall prediction I want to get from you for the upcoming season here. We were 14-18 last year. Is this something that they can improve on? Are we looking at 20 wins this year, or is that being too optimistic?
Well, it's tough to say right now. I'd really like to see if they get another 5th-year guy to just fill out this roster, which I don't know that they necessarily will. This is going to hinder a lot on the development of these young guys. And also, example, we signed Andrews Feliz, JUCO guy. Does he end up meshing well with the team, or do we see another Mark Allstorp where he just struggles to find his spot? It's tough to say. He doesn't seem like he's going to play like that, and it's tough to just compare players like that, especially ones who don't play the same position necessarily. But is he going to fit in well? Are the freshmen going to have their learning curve, or are they going to take it in stride? Who's going to step up? I think Trent's still going to get buckets. I believe we can be a bubble team at the end of the season, but tough to say. A lot of variables, especially if you see like maybe Trent get hurt or something. They really struggle to find who's going to score early. It could get ugly with all the freshmen learning like that, but I'm optimistic on the season, I'd say.
Absolutely. So would you say a hard prediction right now, if you were to call it, how many wins for the Illini this year?
I can comfortably say that they'll flip that record and go 18-14.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, pretty comfortably. I mean, that's fine with me. No doubt. You can lock that right on the board. Can they get to 20 wins? Sure. That defense that they're going to run is going to keep them in games that they shouldn't be in, I'd say, especially if they all buy into the system. We could sniff 20 wins, no doubt, in my mind. Like, there's a possibility. And like I said, any team that gets hot in the tournament can go do crazy things. You never know what's going to happen. The Big Ten tournament is such a fun, amazing tournament to watch. It's like you're getting teased before the real deal, and it's just, anything could happen.